Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. First and foremost, a quick shout out and a thanks to 𝘼𝘾𝙃 watches. You guys remember a while back I did an interview with the boys from 𝘼𝘾𝙃, the owners, the guys that came up with this very avant-garde brand that shook up the watch industry a little bit, I must say, and it's still doing so. So I told you at the time of the video, when they originally reached out to me, I said, you guys are going to send me this watch and I'm going to tell you how it is. I told them I don't do sponsored videos, I don't get paid for any of this stuff, nor do I care to. This channel is not about that. Well, lo and behold, that was a few months back. Yesterday I received this in the mail. And this was an appreciation gift from 𝘼𝘾𝙃 to me for doing what I did to that video. I appreciate it very, very much. There's still a huge waiting list for these, and now I got to have one, and they did give it to me as a gift. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to 𝘼𝘾𝙃. If you guys didn't see the video, check it out. I wanted to give a quick shout out to 𝘼𝘾𝙃. I am going to wear this watch, and actually I'm going to put it through some vigorous testing as well and let you know how that works out. I'm going to go swimming with it. Cannonball! I'm going to bang it around a little bit and see how well this thing will last. But again, quick shout out to 𝘼𝘾𝙃 watches. Appreciate the gift. Thank you so much. Anyway, Q&A Tuesday, so let's go. Let's go! I'm gonna start off with a challenge, and as you guys know, I don't read the challenges. I asked you guys to put the word challenge in the headline, and that way I won't read the body of the email, so it kind of comes off the cuff and it does become actually a challenge. And this one from a gentleman by the name of Kyle. Hey Roman, Kyle again with another Q&A Tuesday challenge for you. Hope you have fun with it. I hope so too. Number one, IWC hires you as a consultant to raise the perception and value of the brand for 2021. What 3 suggestions would you offer? Number one, scale down your production, meaning make less. Number 2, within that same realm, scale down the number of models within your lines. And number 3, get a kick-ass ambassador. Get somebody that the world loves and knows. It's great to have been associated with military watches, and I love military watches, and I love IWC for that. If you look at the IWC line, they're still making watches that they made 50, 60 years ago. So do something new, and last but not least, a little more attention to your grand complication pieces that you make. Concentrate on the fact of how much value you bring from a horological perspective, from a complication perspective to the consumer. Use an ambassador, use the correct ambassador to uplift your image overall on your pilot sporty side, but at the same token, concentrate on showing the world how much bang for your dollar you get with IWCs, your perpetuals, your tourbillons, your minute repeaters, all those things that seem to be in the gutter and don't really have a whole lot of resale value. So make less, market more with the right ambassadors, the right approaches, and change things up a little bit. Stick with your oldies but goodies, but do change some things up. I think you guys are due for something completely new. Number 2, you get the opportunity to choose any discontinued watch to be reissued, or even get to choose within reason which characteristics get updated: longer power reserve, slight increase or decrease in case size, etc. Which watch do you bring back from the grave, and what updates, if any, will it receive? Shit, that's hard. Got to think about this one. Vianney Holter Antigua. And the only thing I would do is make it bigger. It's a tiny little thing. Vianney is one of my favorite independents. There's not a whole lot of watches out there by them that Antigua has gone through. I've owned that watch as cheap as 15,000. They're going over 100 grand right now. That would be the one watch I would bring back in a bigger size, because it's an awkward looking watch. It's oddly shaped, and the fact that it's small, it sits pretty awkward on a wrist. I would love to see that sit as big as, let's say, a 38mm Royal Oak in the very least. And number 3. This question assumes that your vault contains the vast bulk of your merchandise. Any jackpots will simply be added to existing inventory. Let's say, I don't even know where he's going with this. Let's say that Luxury Bazaar vault transforms into a slot machine while you read this question. You stand outside the closed vault with the opportunity to pull the handle as many times as you wish. The vault has 60% chance to spit out a dozen white dial ceramic Daytonas, a 30% chance to spit out 2 random Richard Mille references, and a 10% chance of becoming irradiated such that you cannot safely re-enter the vault or sell watches inside the vault for 6 years. How many times, if any, do you pull the handle? None. Yes, a dozen ceramic Daytonas will carry me over for a month. A couple of Richard Milles as well, maybe a month worth of time of income. But if my safe gets shut down for 6 years, I'm out of business in a matter of 3 months. So I'm not a gambling man, I'm a businessman. Not a big gambler. If I walk into a casino, I walk into with the intention of having a little bit of fun. I'll set aside a couple of grand and say, if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. That happens maybe once a year or so. Just not a big gambler, so I would not gamble with my business, because something like shutting down my safe would definitely put me under, so no. Number 4, you can select 2 of these special abilities for your business. I like where this is going. Which 2 abilities do you choose and why? Number 1, fixer. Any watch that comes in or goes out of Luxury Bazaar automatically fixes itself. Movements are magically serviced, straps become brand new, crystals become unblemished, etc. Full kit. Any watch that comes in or goes out of Luxury Bazaar magically regenerates any missing accessories that originally came with the watch from the factory. Box, paper, screwdriver, sales receipts, etc. Negotiator. Anything Luxury Bazaar purchases will be at 20% discount beyond the best price you would have achieved without this ability. I can tell you without reading the other 2 that that's definitely going to be one of them. Teleportation. Wow. Any watch-related product that you need to ship teleports to its destination, guaranteed free of charge. Omniscience. Instantly memorize all knowledgeable specification of all wristwatch, past, present, and future. Does not include secondary market pricing information. You know what, Kyle? I think you should become a part-time suggester to my marketing department. This is really, really good. I told you right off the bat I picked Luxury Bazaar purchases will be at 20% discount beyond the best price you would have achieved without this ability. This will literally bring my margins up by 20%. So that one is a no-brainer. That's definitely 1. Let's go process of elimination for the 2. And I'm going to look at it from a business perspective, if you don't mind, because a lot of the stuff comes down to money, right? Memorizing all knowledgeable specification of all wrists, past, present, and future. I am pretty knowledgeable in a lot of watches, and I have that memorized in my head, not because I was memorizing them, but just because of, experience, right? So that's not something I would need, and anything that I don't know, I can find on Google. I can minus the future stuff, but that's not really useful in the business setting, right? Teleportation, any watch-related product that you need to ship teleports to the destination, guaranteed free of charge. We spend upwards of $1 million a year on shipping. That includes overnight shippings, economy shippings, armored shippings, and things of that nature. So that certainly would be $1 million plus in the column, so that's a consideration. Fixer, any watch that comes in and goes out of Luxury Bazaar automatically fixes itself, movements are magically serviced, blah, 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 blah. Yes, that also carries a cost, but it's not as big as the savings on the shippings I would have if I could do that, so let's throw that out the window. Full kit. Any watch that comes in and goes out of Luxury Bazaar magically regenerates any missing accessories that originally came with the watch from the factory. Box, paper, screwdriver, sales receipt, etc. But I think with this one, let's say if I was to take financial advantage of this, right? What am I out there buying? I'm buying vintage product like crazy, right? Because on some vintage watches, original box and papers can mean a humongous difference. But I honestly wish I could put the fixer and the full kit together, because if I can get an old Paul Newman Daytona or an old Patek like a 1518 and have it go back to its original state, which is really not what fixer says. It says fixes itself. So that's, I guess it doesn't really work that way. But full kit, that could potentially mean a humongous amount of income as well. But that's not guaranteed, because I would still have to go out there and find that product that's so rare that box and papers add a tremendous value to it, because for most watches it doesn't add that big a value. Maybe 5 to 10% depending on the watch, right? I guess I would go with the guaranteed number, and that would be teleportation, because I know what it costs me to ship stuff out every single year, and that would be a hell of savings. I don't know if I would make an extra $1 million if I was able to regenerate the box and papers. I would love for this to be 3, because that would definitely be the 3rd one. I would certainly love to have that magic ability to sort of test drive the theory and see how that actually translates to paper. Kyle, this is absolutely awesome. I appreciate these challenges, guys. If you got challenges for me, please do so, because these are a lot of fun, and I hope you guys agree. Comment below if you do. Now let's move on to some questions. Here's a good one from Love from Sweden. That's how the email is signed, right? Roman, love your show, and it's by far my favorite. Had a question about the perfect 10-piece watch collection for 100K-ish total. Could you give me some advice? Now, guys, I get these questions all the time. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to this, because, look, what I deem to be the perfect 10-piece collection is not something that you may necessarily like, love, and enjoy. And you shouldn't pick your collection based on my advice. I always preach buy what you like first and foremost, and I like to do it that way. So if you're gonna pick your perfect 10 pieces for the 100 $100-ish total. Do just that. Get out there and see what sinks to you. Don't look at prices. Don't look at anything else. And sort of come up with an idea, hey, this is what I really like. I think the best approach to a collection, regardless if it's 10 watches for 100 grand or whatever it might be, is to look at various things, you know, something historical, something iconic, right? A particular complication that's actually going to be useful to you, be, let's say, a world time watch if you're a world time traveler, right? A dressy watch, which is a sporty watch, versus a watch that you would use in a certain activity that you do often. A watch, you know, a lot of things to consider is a daily watch, right? Are you in an environment where somebody's going to look at you funny if you got on a big diamond watch, right? Or are you in an environment where you want to have a Rolex on to prove a particular point because everybody knows Rolex? Put a list together, then play process of elimination, and then fit it into your budget. You may end up picking a watch that's 80 grand, and you're going to end up telling yourself, you know what? I will buy a watch for 80 grand, and I'm going to buy 9 other watches, which are going to average out to be $1,000 to $2,000 a watch, right? The must-haves in these collections, people say, oh, you must have a Rolex Daytona. Oh, you must have a Speedy. Yes, most will agree that you should have a Speedmaster in your collection, a very iconic watch. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should. If you don't like that watch, as far as you can throw it, who cares? So you better make sure you get out there and find something that you like, and don't base your opinion on what anybody will say, including a guy like me. Use a guy like me to advise you once you've sort of set an idea of what your collection should look like. And that's when I can tell you, you know what? Buy that watch if you really, really like it, but just keep in mind that if you get tired of it and you go to resell it, you're going to lose 80% of that watch. Worry about one thing first and foremost, and that is what you like, because these things are expensive toys, right? So, again, hope, love from Steven, this helps you and everybody else that has asked me that question numerous times. Here's a good question from Baxter, and he writes, good morning, thank you for taking the time to answer my previous submissions, but here's another one. I know you have discussed in the past the difference between factory jewels and aftermarket and the impact that it has on the value of the watch, but have you noticed a trend by territory or market? From here in the UK, I get the impression that aftermarket modifications, be that jewels, finishes, DLC coatings, etc., or skeletonized dials are far less common in the UK as they are in the USA. With Rolex introducing or reintroducing colored dials on the OP, a possible reaction to market trends and clamping down on companies undertaking such custom modification work indicates a demand for such. But how do you see that in terms of UK, Europe, US, and the Far East markets? And do you see a difference across the world in the demand for a customized watch in general? Regards, Baxter. Yes, there's a humongous demand for these things. If there wasn't, it wouldn't have been done, right, Baxter? I mean, common sense, but that you could have answered on your own. Let me tell you a little bit more specific. So if you want to talk about bust downs, manufacturers often attributed diamond encrusted watches to females, correct? But they've also made their fair share of diamond encrusted watches for males, and they continue doing so today. There are companies out there like 𝘽𝙀𝙀𝙀, who is notorious for creating diamond encrusted watches, right? Obviously, they're factory set. Now, what are they normally attributed to? It's attributed to hip-hop culture, correct? This is what put that stuff out there. Now, think back as far as you can remember. Pull up numerous hip-hop videos with big, heavy diamond gold chains and diamond-encrusted watches and things like that. Hip-hop originated in the United States. So by default, your biggest market is going to be the United States of America. Now, that's not to say that hip-hop is not worldwide. So you got rappers out there rapping in pretty much any language that you can think of. But United States is still the biggest market for diamond encrusted watches. The Middle East is another humongous market for diamond encrusted watches. Hong Kong is a big market, but not internally. Hong Kong is a big market because a lot of the stuff is produced there because labor is cheap. But you may get the illusion that Hong Kong is a huge market for diamond encrusted watches just because there's a lot of them out there, right? It's a shopping mecca of the world. People from all over the world come there to shop. It's a duty-free zone, so naturally you're going to have a lot of that stuff there. As far as UK is concerned, think in terms of population too. United States is 5 times the size in terms of population than that of UK, right? You guys have 65 or 66 million people living there. We have like almost 350 million people living here. So, you know, it's a numbers game just the same. And I think if you manage to find out the number of those watches being sold there per year against your population, you'd be pleasantly surprised if you compare those numbers, let's say, to the United States. I can't speak for DLC and things of that nature because, again, I don't really deal a lot in customized Rolexes. So I would imagine the numbers would probably translate just the same, although I can't say that DLC or PVD coatings or blacked out watches are necessarily attributed to hip hop culture. I don't think they are. This is a different type of customization that I can't really label, again, some sort of a culture, right? Rolex introducing or reintroducing colored dials OP, smart move. They sue the crap out of this one company if we get it. I'm sure Ian can pop that article up on the screen, right, for doing what they're doing. But look, I told you guys before, if you think these companies aren't paying attention to what's done in the aftermarket, they are. They are paying very close attention because, look, in the board meeting, somebody out there said, look, people are taking these old Datejust, putting these beautiful, colorful dials, and it looks really, really cool. We're going to sue them because they're not allowed to do it, and we're going to do it ourselves. In case in point, these things are selling through the roof. The Tiffany dials right now, people are asking me $12,000 or $13,000 for that watch, and I told her just wait. It's just insane, right? PVD and DLC coatings. How many companies out there are doing PVD and DLC coatings? Bamford was probably the one most famous company that somehow got around Rolex suing them and were able to actually produce these watches, charging an enormous amount of money. But then everybody jumped on a bandwagon. So to finish this question off, your last thing was says, and do you see a difference across the world in demand for customized watch in general? Yes, there is a difference. A lot of it is going to be related to, again, population and the culture. And the U.S. is going to be number one. It's going to stay number one, especially specifically to bust down watches. Hope that answers your questions, and don't be surprised that a lot of these customizations that you're seeing today, years later, because it takes time with these companies, do end up on actual watches as factory accessories or OEM accessories. Quick FYI, you guys remember the gentleman that sent me those pictures as a gift? The ones that he hand drew and then he put them on a canvas for me with the various watches. He emailed me back saying, hey, good afternoon, Roman, just saw your video, and wow, thanks so much for showing the watch canvases. This is really awesome of you. I haven't sold any before, but if anyone was interested in purchasing them, please feel free to pass along my email. So as I said before, this guy wasn't looking for a shout out or anything like that, but I offered in the last video telling him that, look, if you do want to sell these, give me some information, an Instagram account or something so that I can pass on to my fans, because a lot of you guys actually asked me about those canvases already since that video went live. So I'm gonna have Ian put it on the screen. So if any of you guys are interested in buying those canvases, you know me, I love to give people shout outs, especially for something as cool as this. And then he further writes, right now, drawing is a hobby I've always enjoyed, but don't have a website. Also, if you're ever doing any kind of charity, I would be in to donate some art for it. Just got one below finished and test printed on an 8x10 black canvas. I would also like to thank you for your service to our countries as I served in the Marine Corps. Well, thank you for your service just the same. And if you ever get to Boise, Idaho area, and don't hesitate to reach out and we can go out shooting. Cars, guns, and watches, gotta love life. Thanks again, Kip. Well, Kip, thanks for follow-up. If you guys are interested in any of those paintings, by all means, contact Kip. And Kip, I do a lot of charity things, so I will be reaching out for another one of those canvases to give away at a charity event for certain. And he actually, ooh, look at that Lang that he drew. That's beautiful. I'll have Ian pop that image up on the screen as well. Here's a really good and somewhat funny to me question from David. He writes, hey, I'm a massive fan of the channel. It's become an unstoppable addiction to hear your thoughts on watches, the market, and the great work you're doing. Big thanks for continuing to share, as I'm aware of the huge effort it takes to make these videos. Thank you. And it does take quite the effort to have a full-blown video production within the company, especially now that we're running two channels simultaneously, my watch channel as well as the jewelry channel. If you guys are not subscribed, go subscribe there. Go to the vault and subscribe, or at least have your significant other subscribe. It's gonna be just as cool as this channel.
Do it. Do it.
I wanted to know your thoughts on a Patek 3940P. I've become consumed with this piece, subsequently spotted a unique example available that was produced and sold in 2011, 4 years after the regular production ended in 2007. Apparently, likely to be a special order for a client. Would you consider this fact should create a premium on the piece, currently listed at 55,000 euros, which is 66,000 USD, which apparently are roughly 7,000-8,000 more than what they're currently on the market from my research. This would be a huge piece for me. And shout out my collection below. What are your thoughts on this? These pieces only seem to creep up over the years. So he also has a JLC Master Control Chrono Calendar, Rolex Steel Datejust 16014, the linen dial, and the Rolex Zenith Steel Daytona Inverted 9. Wishing you good health and in the meantime, and all the best. Thanks for your videos that you put out, David. Well, David, let's go to your collection real quick. The two Rolexes, money in the bank, certainly can hold on to them. They're going to continue appreciating. JLC Master Control, not so much, unfortunately. Jaegers usually don't tend to go up in value. They tend to go down in value, but who cares? If you like this watch, why not? The Master Control Chrono Calendar is actually a great watch. 3940P, it's one of those extremely undervalued watches that are out there, along with some of the other older calendars. I showed you guys a 5059J retrograde calendar from Patek Philippe that sells for like $45,000. Lots of those deals out there right now, because when it comes to Patek today, everybody wants Nautilus and what Octonauts, that's what's hot right now, right? So take advantage of the market and buy yourself a 3940P. $66,000 is a little expensive. I can get you one cheaper. But back to your question, at which I kind of laughed out loud a little bit, that was produced and sold in 2011, 4 years after the regular production ended in 2007. One false statement that you don't know when the watch is actually produced. The way you know what year a watch is when you look at the paper. So when you look at the papers and see the papers are dated 2011, which is 4 years after they finished production on that particular watch, doesn't mean it was produced 4 years later. What it actually means, and I'm willing to bet, is that that's a watch that sat at a dealer for many years before he was able to sell it. Odds are he probably got that into his stock in 2006 or 2007, and he wasn't able to sell it for 4 years. And then when he finally sold it, he dated the papers at the time of sale. And that's the only thing that I can tell you about that watch. It is not something that was special ordered. It is not something that's worth more money. It is simply something that couldn't be sold, because you have to consider the years. If this is something that the dealer got towards the end of the production, which means you could have gotten this as late as 2008. We had that little financial crisis and everything kind of went into the toilet, and then dressing models from Patek went to Probably, if I had to guess, that's probably what happened. And when the market finally picked back up in 2011, whoever the dealer was actually managed to sell that watch. Don't go spend, well, first of all, don't go spending $66,000 on that watch. It can be bought cheaper. And definitely don't go spending an extra $7,000, $8,000 more for a piece where the papers are dated in 2011. Hope that helps. Here's a good question from Michael, all the way from Australia. Hey Roman, hope you and your team are well. Massive fan of your channel and videos, especially your vlogs. Thank you. My question is, when you sell a watch and they're preparing for postage, how do you cover your backside that the buyer doesn't bullshit saying that he received, unquote, a brick in a box? I asked this question as I have had one recently where the buyer said he received no watch. I've taken several photos of the watch, packed it, etc., which I have provided, but would love to know how LB handles this type of risk. Also remember watching Q&A about the billionaire Patek, which he handed a $200K deposit for a dealer and then got told he no longer wants it, and you took a $200,000 hit. How often does that occur? I buy online a lot and I only now got caught up in fraud scam, approximately 12,000 Australian dollars. Whilst I'm just starting up, I'm a positive person and driven, and I know it will take time, but I'll recoup it from hard work. Question is, how often does this occur to you at LB? Any suggestions on how to protect yourself? Last question, will we see you in Australia? There's an IJWF in Sydney in August. Will you make it? I would love to meet you and invite you and your team to dinner, maybe be Middle Eastern cuisine. Stay safe and continue hustling. Well, Michael, love Middle Eastern cuisine. You already know that from all my vlogs. And I appreciate the invite. Australia is the one continent I haven't been to. I've been to a lot of places all over the world, and Australia is the one place that's certainly on my bucket list.
Do you come from a land down under?
It's very much on my bucket list. So hopefully when I get out there, I will take you up on your offer. But back to your question, first of all, how often does it occur that I buy something on someone's behalf and they end up backing out? It happens once in a while. It doesn't happen that often. It makes maybe a few times a year. But from that particular incident, I learned a lesson. I cap at how much risk I'm willing to take. If a client calls me up, say, Roman, order me a $20,000 watch, and then backs out of it, no big deal, I'll stock that $20,000 watch. In that case, it was a watch that was over $1 million. So when it comes to bigger transactions, my approach has been the same ever since that happened, and that happened quite a while ago. And that is, hey, you want to buy a big watch from me? This is how much money I need up front before I commit to it. If you don't send me the money on time and the watch happens to be sold, that's your loss, so hurry up, send me the money. I will not commit to it until money is in my bank account. So that's sort of been the approach. Otherwise, I'd rather not do the sale because the risk is not worth it. Because on my end, I will not back out. If I give somebody my word, said I bought it, I bought it. Everybody that does business with me knows that I've never backed out of a deal, no matter how expensive it may have been. You're scammed with the brick in a box. I think I told you this, guys, before. We have a camera overhead, so as my shipping people are shipping these things, you can see on the monitor exactly what's visible as it comes out. They pull out the paperwork, they pull out all the accessories, so I can visually see exactly what came in, and then we'll log that. Then, from there, once it's packaged up, I have cameras everywhere in my office. Every square inch of my office is covered with a camera. I can literally trace that package coming from the shipping room, going into that shipping bin, then that shipping bin bill rolled out, handed to the FedEx driver, making sure that they scan every package in. My shipping guys stand there until every single package is scanned in, and it's out of my hair, and it's insured. And it's FedEx's responsibility. Can you really stop somebody from saying, I received a brick in a box? Absolutely not, but that's why we have insurance, right? Where our claim is that, hey, here's the video of this watch going out, and this guy is now claiming, therefore, it must have been stolen while in possession of a shipping company. It's a lot easier for guys like us. We've been doing business for a long time. For a private individual or somebody who does this, who dabbles on the side for stuff like this, it's very difficult. You don't have the relationship we have with FedEx. You don't have you don't carry the type of insurances that we carry and things of that nature, which cost a ton of money, by the way. And last but not least, the reason somebody like me won't get caught up in a scam like this, because those that want to scam, they don't pick big targets. They pick targets that are private sellers, maybe just selling off one watch, or small dealers that perhaps doing this as a side gig that sell, you know, 1 or 2 watches a month or 5 watches a year, right? They can easily tell who is a personal seller versus a big company seller like us. You know, if somebody looks at one of our listings anywhere, be it eBay, Chrono, our website, or anywhere else, they'll realize that they're dealing with a bigger company, and bigger companies have logistics in place to prevent these type of things. So, if you will, they pick weak prey, if that makes sense, because they know for them it's going to be a lot harder. So my only advice for you to prevent is to continue doing what you're doing as far as taking pictures or taking a video, etc., up to the point where you hand it off to FedEx, right? Or you get scanned in, and make sure your stuff is insured for cases such as this. And you have to be very specific with your insurance company, because a lot of them will say, yes, well, you're insured up until the time the guy signs for it. Once it's signed for and the guy takes this thing in the house, at that point you're no longer insured. To be very, very specific with your insurance company to see what kind of coverage you're actually going to get. Flat out ask him, if I send a guy a watch and he opens up that package and calls me later and said, hey, there's a brick in the box, am I covered? That's really the kind of question you need to ask of all of your shippers as well as your insurance company. And I hope that helps, and I hope this never happens to you again. So I'm going to finish this one with an odd question. And since I kind of made you guys preview to the fact that I collect antique guns, and speaking of which, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this from here, but check this out. Behind me, there's a bunch of new old rifles came in, mid to late 1800s. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the reason I bring this up is because I actually had somebody ask me a gun question, so I hope you guys don't mind, because this gentleman sent me a really, really cool vintage gun. So Noah writes, hey Roman, I hope you and your family are doing well with these challenging times. My name is Noah and I'm a big fan of the channel. Your videos provide both entertainment, watching you and Adrian bicker, LOL, but also a lot of useful information when it comes to the watch world. Even though I consider myself a pretty avid watch enthusiast, my question today is focused on your knowledge of firearms. I have a vintage Savage Arms Company model 1899, which was passed down to my grandfather's close friend. However, from the research I've done, this doesn't seem just to be a normal 1899. It seems that my example is referred to as the 1899D musket, and there's approximately 800 or so were issued to the Montreal Home Guard, a private military organization formed by the officers of the Quebec Savings and Trust Company in Montreal. I actually know the story behind that. To resist a feared German invasion of Canada. It's numbered 767 on the butt plate and even has a slot for a bayonet. It is also engraved with the name of the original owner on the side of the receiver. The only downside is it doesn't seem to match images of other examples of the same type, leading me to think that this was modified for hunting after the war. Sorry for the long-winded message, but I simply wanted to get your insight on the gun and a potential value of this piece being modified, seeing as you're pretty much the closest person to an expert that I know. I've attached pictures below. Looking forward to your response, Noah. So again, guys, I hope you don't mind, but I will answer this question because this is something I love just the same. But rather than sit here and propose myself to be the utmost expert in vintage arms, I am somewhat of an expert. I do have a wealth of knowledge. A lot of that knowledge is tied to history and innovation, mechanics, if you will, because that's what really fascinates me most about the guns, is the evolution and the effect that arms had. But what I did do is, in order to give you a correct answer, is I actually reached out to my buddy Dan from AncestryGuns.com. I'll have Ian put up that link. So I wrote to Dan, I said, would you mind answering, because I think it would make for a more accurate answer. So this is what Dan wrote. The number on the butt plate, the serial number range, and the name on the side of the receiver are indicators that this was indeed a Montreal Home Guard piece. Almost all of those orders were musket configurations of the Savage Model 1899D, and this does not meet the criteria of the prototypical MHD musket style rifle with the full length stock. Top handguard, hooded front sight, military ladder rear sight, barrel bands, and bayonet look. It's difficult to tell from the photos, but yours could certainly have been modified from a musket. It would not be shocking, however, if it was originally built as a carbine or a short rifle. According to Savage records, there are gaps in the rack numbering of the musket, and it's thought that there were some other makes and models, such as the Canadian Ross, that were purchased. So it's not a stretch that the Savage carbine may have been a musket in the first place, yet still part of the special order group for the MHD that falls in the same serial number range. One unique trait of your piece is the butt plate, which is numbered like the others, but unlike the others, has the compartment for a cleaning rod. It's apparently without a door, but it does look as though the stock is hollow to make use of the trap. The Montreal Home Guard were private citizens that were associated with the Montreal Polo Club and were apparently largely self-funded, according to a letter by Roe Clark that I found on a confirmed MHD Savage 1899 rifle. It was shipped to Quebec Savings and Trust Co., which was acting as the purchasing agent for the Montreal Polo Club, which had organized a Home Guard unit. This group was formed during the Great War to protect against the German invasion. And the Savages were delivered in multiple shipments from late 1914 through 1915. I love Dan because he always puts a piece of history behind it. 𝘼𝙀𝙃, whose name is engraved on the left side of the seal, was almost certainly Francis Joseph Laverty, a Montreal lawyer, His Majesty's counsel, learned in the law, or KC for King's Counsel, who was partners with John Wesley Blair and Charles Albert Hale, and did business out of Canada, life building on St. James Street, noteworthy as the first generation skyscraper from the late 1890s. Though the engraving of his name is distinct stylistically from other rifles within the genre, this is likely due to the fact that only some of these rifles were engraved at all and were probably done by a local engraver or a jeweler. These are desirable pieces because of their rarity, uniqueness, and history. The Savage Company's records were just acquired by Buffalo Bill Cody Center of the West, and letters can be ordered for a fee, which means you can actually write to them, send them pictures, serial numbers, and everything else, and they will letter your guns, much like Colt does it, and Smith & Wessons, and Sharps, etc. If this letters as an MHD musket that was later sporterized, or cut off basically, I would expect the value to be somewhere in $1,000 to $2,000 range. If it's an original factory configuration, yet has the rest of the hallmarks of an MHD special order rifle, then I believe you could perhaps realize a price of $2,000 to $4,000 as an authentic alternative to the musket variant. MHD muskets with hallmarks and in fine plus condition seem to bring prices of $5,000 and above. The photos I had limited to what I could tell about the condition overall and perhaps some of the finer details, but I hope you find this helpful. Nonetheless, best regards, Dan. So, you could probably guys tell why I like to do business with Dan and why I reached out to Dan, because Dan definitely goes an extra mile when it comes to research and history, and this is why me and him kind of hit it off, because again, I love history and I love to tie guns into history. I actually got a lot more what I bargained for. I want to thank Dan. Dan, thank you very much if you're watching this for taking the time and really diving into depth. No, I hope this is a useful piece of information. If you want to send additional photos or if you want to talk to Dan, send me another email. I'll just forward it to Dan. You guys can talk, because it sounds like you got a hella gun here. Sounds like I want one of these, because I don't have one of these in my collection. For those of you that found this interesting, comment below, let me know. No, I'm not going to turn this channel into a gun channel, but this is probably the first time an antique gun question came in, so I kind of got excited and decided to put it in here, and then Q&A here. As always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber to my channel, and share this with your friends, because this is what helps my channel grow organically. Other than that, guys, I'll see you next Tuesday.